That's right, I sold my iPhone 7 and purchased the Samsung Galaxy S7. What a coincidence the numbers kind of line up like that. Does anyone remember the original Samsung Galaxies? They came in like 4 or 5 different variants for the different phone carriers. But wow, those phones were such crap. But I'm here to say with certainty that after using the iPhone 7 for several months, the Galaxy S7 is a better phone for me. So that's right, I sold the iPhone to my friend and used that money to purchase this. So from just a price standpoint alone, the S7 is a better buy. Got it for $500 compared to the $700 I paid for the iPhone only a few months earlier. Keep in mind, the S7 was released earlier as well, so the prices kind of line up with their release dates. If you're thinking to yourself, Greg, why did you buy the S7 when the S8 will be released around March? Well, that's because I wanted to show all of you that you can spend less money to buy something even better than the Apple competitor, which will still be their flagship phone until next September or thereabouts. Look, I understand the whole Apple ecosystem argument. Okay, I was there. I purchased a MacBook, an iPhone 7, and an Apple Sport Watch all at the same time just to understand where people were coming from when they said Apple ecosystem. I actually made a video right here explaining the cohesiveness and actually praising it just for being so effortless and harmonious, all 3 of those devices working together so well. But it's a double-edged sword, and I realize that now that I've ventured outside of the system itself. If you try to introduce a product that's not from Apple into the system, it becomes very, very resilient. It's to be expected from Apple, but it was still a huge letdown. I had to sell my Apple Watch against my will because it only works with other Apple products. On the contrary, you can use Samsung Gear 2 to communicate with virtually any phone regardless of the operating system. iOS integration is still a bit finicky, but it'll get there. The point is they're trying, at least they're trying. It's something everyone interested in mobile tech knows. Android is open, it's freely navigable. Want to jump right into your phone's root file system? No problem. Want to extract specific files from your phone? No problem. These operations are extremely limited on the other side of the aisle, and many aren't willing to trust semi-tethered jailbreaks offered on various sites. So what exactly do I like more about the Samsung Galaxy S7 that made me switch in the first place? Well, an open file system for starters. You kind of expect that with Android. I knew this going into the whole thing, by the way. The ability to change and customize entire launchers, also something most people know about going into it, but still nice to have, and when you don't have it, it kind of sucks because everyone's iPhone looks the same on the home screens. The fact that a headphone jack exists, yeah, I had to say it, okay, just get over it. The screen and the design. Let's touch on a few, starting with what you'd notice first. The all glass and aluminum construction. I opted for gold in this case because it's all that was available, but I'm kind of glad it worked out that way. This is a very unique look, although it shares many characteristics with its older sibling, the Galaxy S6. Unlike the S6, however, the S7's battery life is top-notch, and quick charge for almost immediate rejuvenation is nice to have. Gorilla Glass 4 surrounds the entire device, and minor contours on the back edges seamlessly wrap around your palms. It's definitely a more comfortable device to hold in your hand, more comfortable than an iPhone 7, I can say that without a doubt, but at the expense of being a bit more slippery, the curved back edges don't help that at all. And the fact that glass exists on the back, that's something else to keep in mind. Also, the curved aluminum edges here, they're nice. It just, you know, it's a very cohesive phone in that sense, but it's difficult to grab hold of it when it's laying down. So if it's just kind of laying down this way or even laying down the opposite way, because the aluminum is also curved and the back edges are curved, you're not left with much surface area with which to grab the phone. So if you lift it up and you're not actually gripping it well, then the phone could just slip out from under you. So keep that in mind. You don't want a shattered phone, regardless of whatever Gorilla Glass is on here. Glass shatters. So now about the screen. 1440p Super AMOLED display, drop dead gorgeous, covers a whopping 72% of the front surface and puts the iPhone 7's resolution to shame. Even the iPhone 7 Plus's resolution, the 1080p, still isn't enough for a flagship phone. That's just my opinion. AMOLED is the way of the future, and I wish other smartphone manufacturers would jump on board already. LG and Apple, I'm looking at you too. Spec-wise, we're looking at a Qualcomm Snapdragon 820 quad-core processor that pulls in a single-core Geekbench 4 score of around 1550, multi-core at 3837. iPhone 7's A10 Fusion processor is a heck of a lot faster without a doubt, but it's not something you'd likely notice much while running something as lightweight as iOS. I explain that in more detail right here. Overall though, the S7 is fairly fluid, a few hiccups here and there. TouchWiz is bloated as it is. I wish Samsung would just ditch TouchWiz altogether, go for something more stock, so run a custom launcher to speed things along. Camera quality on the smartphone is excellent. It's not something I'm too picky about usually because I know that I have a DSLR if I really need good looking photos. So if you want professional grade photos, a DSLR is the way to go. I wouldn't even consider a smartphone for any of that, even an iPhone 7. But the iPhone 7's picture quality is probably the best out there right now in terms of smartphone cameras. The Google Pixel probably has a second best camera from what I've seen. The OnePlus 3 and a few others are, close thirds. The LG G5 has a decent camera as well, but it just comes down to preference, color reproduction, all that stuff will vary from phone to phone. The S7s I would say is like an 8 out of 10 if the iPhone 7s is a 10 out of 10, and that's just coming from personal experience thus far. The color reproduction on the S7 is a bit oversaturated. That tends to be the case with Samsung phones. So not as natural looking as they would be on the iPhone 7s, but you get everything from 4K at 30 FPS and 1080p 60 FPS to optical image stabilization. You even get Pro mode included in the stock camera app, which allows you to control everything from your ISO to your aperture to your exposure, your autofocus. All of that is at your disposal in the stock camera app in the Samsung S7, which is really nice. I wish Apple would do the same. For Apple's iPhones, you have to download a third-party camera app in order to get the same features. So that's just something else to keep in mind there. I obviously agree that the iPhone 7 has a much better camera, but it's not something that I would fault the S7 for not meeting the expectations of. It's still a great camera, it just isn't as good as the iPhone 7s. With 12 megapixel stills and a whopping f1.7 aperture and a 5 megapixel selfie cam with the exact same aperture, this means great low light performance shots with the Galaxy S7. So I might give the low light shot edge to the S7, but everywhere else the iPhone 7 does dominate. Something else that I think is cool, you probably already noticed, the fact that the on-screen display stays on all the time. So it'll display your time, your battery life, things like that, the date. You can control what's on there. You can even turn it off altogether if it's not your kind of thing. So you have all that flexibility in there. That means that individual pixels can turn themselves off completely. That's the joy of AMOLED, which means that you can save battery life. It's not like the whole screen's on, just these few pixels you're seeing that are white. And it's not even a very bright, notification thing. So it's not going to keep you up at night if you just set it on your nightstand or something like that. But the battery life really isn't hindered by this. And it's just something that I think is really cool. LG's done the same thing with their IPS displays, which is a lot harder to do because IPS displays don't have that ability to turn off individual pixels. They're lit from the back. But this is something I think is very cool, a unique way of taking advantage of the Super AMOLED display. Lastly, I'd like to touch on the fingerprint sensor. It's not as great as the iPhones, but it's good enough. I rarely have to repress the home key to unlock the phone, and even when I do, it's only when I'm holding the phone at an awkward angle, kind of like this. I have it laying on a desk, so I never really have to unlock it doing that. So in summary, I'm going to say a few things that are facts and a few things that are opinions, so be warned, you might not agree with me on the opinion part, but here we go. This phone looks better than an iPhone 7. It's built better than an iPhone 7. Corning Gorilla Glass 4 all the way around the thing, and it's also dustproof and waterproof, so that's another perk that I didn't mention earlier for the S7. I think it has a way better screen than the iPhone 7. Battery life is about on par with the iPhone 7. The camera isn't as good as the iPhone 7's, but I'm not going to take away points from the S7 because the camera's still great. I just give bonus points to the iPhone 7. Operating system, in my opinion, is better. I've used both operating systems for a while. I'm the kind of guy who prefers Android. That's just how I am. And last but not least, this phone has a headphone jack. That's how I'm going to end the video. It's got a headphone jack, it automatically wins, right? If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down. If you feel the complete opposite or if you hate everything about life, be sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Stay tuned for I haven't even priced this PC out, but it's going to be fairly expensive. It's an expensive editing/gaming ITX PC that we'll be building in the Fractal Node 202, an X99 PC. Yeah, so we're going to use an ITX X99 PC from ASRock that you will see shortly. Stay tuned for that. That'll be really fun just to kind of build and experiment with. This is Salazar Studio. Thanks for learning with us.